The millennia-spanning epic. When the continent of Atlantis was struck by a meteorite, their surviving cities used an unusual combination of science and magic to protect the people. While King Orin had faith in the science that let his people thrive underwater, his brother King Shalako rejected science in favor of worshipping dark powers, setting up a conflict that would mark all who followed. Hey everybody, welcome to another exciting episode, another edition of A Week in Geekdom here on YouTube. It's an aquatic edition, ladies and gentlemen. I have been waiting ages to do this video, and I finally get the chance to do so. I bring you this awesome storyline that I have been dying to talk about, Aquaman the Atlantis Chronicles. Ladies and gentlemen, this is quite possibly one of the most epic sci-fi historical fiction books, is that a thing? I don't know, that you will ever have the opportunity to read. Now, I get it, they put Aquaman in the title because, you know, it deals with the history of Atlantis after its sinking and all that stuff. Spoilers, he doesn't show up. He appears for like 2 pages at the end of it. Yeah, this is basically the whole history of the aquatic nation of Atlantis. I can't tell you how happy I am that DC reprinted this, because of the longest time, Aquaman has not had any collected editions. I mean, aside from the New 52 stuff from Jeff Johns and all the subsequent artists, and now with DC Rebirth, aside from that, because that's modern times, there really isn't anything. There's a couple out-of-print books from Silver Age stuff, and I think like Time and Tide from Peter David, and a few random trades from Sub Diego and all that stuff. It wasn't until recently, like last year, where they started to reprint some of the more important storylines. But a huge chunk, I would say 80% of Aquaman's catalog is missing in collected editions. There's hardly any hardcovers, let alone a deluxe edition. So for them to put out this baby, it's just, wow, man. It's just, look at that cover. It's brimming with awesomeness. Look at the skull head meteor. Look at Shalako. I think I said that right. Look at Orin. And everybody else, man. This is just a beautiful epic in every sense of the word. Now you're probably wondering, hey, you've been talking for like 3 or 4 minutes about this non-stop. What the hell is the Atlantis Chronicles? Basically, it's the history about the first age. I think it goes to like 4 ages of Atlantis before its sinking, after Arion left. Now, Arion was a sorcerer where he lived in Atlantis before it was the sunken city and all that stuff, and he debuted with a lot of Superman books and all that stuff. We're not going to get into that. We're going to get into the story presented here on 7 prestige issues. They're like 46 pages long each or something like that, nearly the size of an annual nowadays. And they cover so much, and they talk about so many interesting items that I cannot wait. I'm not going to spoil it just in case you've never read it, and I want to do a little quick overview. Here's the dust jacket. When you look at this looks like something you would read out of your library of this epic encyclopedia of knowledge. And it's to my understanding that this Professor R.K. Simmons, I think that's what his name is, he had like this, like some scrolls or something that he had found with the history of Atlantis and whatnot. And come on, nobody's gonna believe him. So he did the sensible thing for us nerds, and he went to DC Comics, and Peter David, instead of creating a story about this origin, he adapted those like Dead Sea Scrolls, if you will, with Atlantis information. But here's the thing, correct me if I'm wrong, I can't find anything on this subject. I'm looking online, I'm like, R.K. Simmons, the professor, and I'm looking for this guy, and I can't find anything. So if you know, please, by all means, let me know. this is like a huge brain fart, I guess, because I can't find anything on Google. But yeah, he basically provided all this rich history about all these characters and Atlantis, and Peter David masterfully adapted them to comic book form and basically gave us a definitive post-crisis origin for Aquaman's homeworld. Now, what is this book about? Basically, you get the story of King Orin, one of the first kings after the deluge, if you will, after the sinking, and how he protects his people, and basically he has a heavy hand in the formation of what is the true Atlantis, because before that it was a city of pleasures and just a beautiful high society of advanced technology and the arts and war and poetry and all that stuff. And when it sinks, it's basically like the end of the world for these characters. This meteor strikes and causes a massive tsunami and earthquake, and when it sinks, the city was protected by this huge dome that would let them breathe oxygen inside and protect it from the immense pressure of the underwater sea life and all that stuff. And he has a brother called Shalako, and I think it's Shalako. I'm not too sure. It's a very silly sounding name, but it's awesome. Shalako is basically this priest, this blonde priest, and he's more into the whole faith-based. He's a spiritual guide to the king. They're brothers, and right away when you get an epic tale, usually in epic tales, you get this struggle between brothers, between conflicting ideologies, and in this case, you get one man that's heavily optimistic and relies on science and fact and all that stuff, and another that wants to do the same thing but approaches it from a spiritual standpoint. And that's all fine and dandy. I love both sides, and it's actually pretty interesting. Once the calamity strikes, you see this huge rift open up, and these characters are at odds with each other. There is a love there, but it's blinded by the inevitable crisis at hand. This book, as I mentioned, covers a couple ages, like centuries of history, and you get to see everything. And by everything I mean how they developed their aquatic abilities, how they became so proficient underwater. Why did they How did they survive underwater with the immense pressure on top of that city? The two cities, of course, one named after Poseidon, Poseidonis, I think, and Tritonus, and both cities are a reflection of the two brothers. I won't spoil it, just in case you want to check it out. This book basically takes you on a fantastic journey through time on a lost city that had much to say, and basically their own hubris, their own ego brought them down, and how they rise above it. And I think it does so in a very awesome way. It really felt like I was reading an actual chronicle. And the name, if you're wondering, is because the story is written from the perspective of the Atlantis Chronicle historian, if you will, and his or her point of view. You get several of these writers all the way up to the present time, if you will, and they each bring a unique flavor to the story, and they tell it through their eyes, and you see that. You see the way it's written, even the way the font is written in the actual page changes from writer to writer, so I thought that was a nice touch. And you get to see a lot of characters and basically the evolution of Aquaman's world, and why when he comes into play later on in the present day DC universe, he is such a controversial figure for the Atlanteans. He's either a messiah, a Masonic figure, or he's either the devil himself, and there's a reason to that, and you get to find it in this book. You get to learn that this character has been preordained, he's been predestined, if you will, to inherit the throne and be such a beloved figure amongst his own people, and at the same time being hated by his own people. The art in it is just beautiful. It's drawn by Esteban Maroto, a Spanish artist, which I respect so much because the art is fabulous, and I just really great attention to detail, hyper realistic stuff. This is the stuff of legends, if you will. Look at that. Look Look at that. It's so pretty. It's such a vivid place, especially because it's underwater. You get to see a lot of textures and colors and aquatic life and the way costumes are designed and stuff like Esteban planning out the scene where you see all the characters in dull grayish colors and the central figure would be really highlighted in bright, colorful costumes that would immediately draw you in to the very center of the panel, and stuff like that really makes it worthwhile. You do get to see a lot of cool stuff, from romance to epic fights to petty squabbles to grandiose encounters to mysticism to superheroics. This book has everything, and each story is carefully crafted that it flows naturally. Like for the first 5 issues, the narrative is so tight and you're following this epic story of these characters surviving underwater. Really heavy stuff. And I think it's very underrated compared to other stories out there that explore the backgrounds on certain characters. Like this basically just, this is like the Bible for the aquatic verse of the DC universe. This lays it out so beautiful in such a hauntingly epic way. You get full-scale wars like this. Look at this awesome panel right there. I mean, it just has everything. This book is a beautiful exercise in world building. I think everybody should give it a shot. If you're even remotely interested in the world of Aquaman, I cannot praise this book enough. It's very important for us fans because it just, yeah, like I said, the world building is top notch. It leads you to unexpected places and you get to care about these characters, which is rare on a book from the 80s on a title that, for all intents and purposes, was not the bestseller compared to Superman, Batman, or on the Marvel side with other characters like Spider-Man and X-Men and all that stuff. Yet still, I gotta commend Peter David and the DC publishing team for sticking with it and actually publishing the whole thing and not getting canceled. Nowadays, it would get canceled, but yeah, it's just, man, this is so freaking badass. I'm not gonna say who this character is, but he is super important to the lore of Aquaman, which I found really, really interesting and plays into the whole idea of mysticism, taboo, curses, and all that stuff. And basically, the whole cast of characters of the Atlantis Chronicles all have a part to play in the foundation and the creation of the aquatic hero Arthur Curry, aka the Aquaman. It's that important in my opinion, and the way they go about it, weaving this orchestra of tales of love and intrigue and betrayal, and just, it really oozes a unique personality that I think should be experienced, that I think everybody should check out. Again, it might not be for everybody simply because of its age. It has aged quite a bit, just a tiny little bit, maybe with the dialogue and the pacing and all that stuff. But it's so interesting because it's so alien-ish. It's underwater. You don't recognize it. The characters themselves think like there's nobody else on the surface because everything was wiped out because of the meteorite and all that stuff. So it's just them, and it's just them doing their own thing, and they don't depend on anything. It's like reading a brand new Earth, a brand new world, if you will. And it's just beautiful. Great art, great story, wonderful mythos of one of my favorite comic book characters of all time, my favorite DC hero, if you will. Just an interesting exercise in world building that I highly recommend. The Atlantis Chronicles is superb, in my opinion. And yes, I am a fanboy. I don't care. I've talked way too long about this book. It's just that great. Look at those colors. Look at that panel. It basically reads like you've discovered these ancient stories that you didn't know about, and this alien world that just so happens to be a few thousand feet down below on the Atlantic Ocean. The book examines these characters and their heritage and the way two ideologies can transcend time and reach further into future generations and influence a society, and how you see the rise and the peak of this kingdom and then fall and rise again through different circumstances and different characters that help and reshape the world. It's that awesome. So, guys, tell me down below what you thought of the Atlantis Chronicles if you have read it. If you haven't, I am very interested in knowing if you are going to pick it up, because I think it's worthwhile and very underrated. So, yeah, let me know. As always, guys, you can follow me on your favorite social media platforms. Just type a Week in Geekdom, and I'm there for you guys. Alright, I gotta go. I have a bunch of cool stuff to read and review, and I will catch all of you on our next episode. Hey, you made it to this part of the video. Spoilers! There's little baby Aquaman right there.